So this is the evaluation question for my question 4. The question is, how did you use media technologies in the construction and research, planning and evaluation stages? So during the journey of my A2 coursework, I used different hardwares and softwares to put together my blog. The technology I used in my research task consisted of several online tools such as Emaze, Prezi and Powtoon. I also used apps like PowerPoint and uploaded them to my blog via SlideShare. My research was mainly online and online based. I thought this was necessary for my research as it was mainly all about gaining knowledge rather than actually filming or doing things. So for instance, doing my cinema product research, I did that on software like Emaze and Prezi, and I felt like those tasks were all about me understanding what I was going to have to do rather than me actually doing them. So these tasks gave me insight into what music, video, digipack and poster were really meant to be, without having to use hardware. However, when I reached the planning stage of my coursework, I began to use more video-based software like Adobe Premiere Pro. For instance, I created a mood board with different images overlapping over the song Oceans by Seafret. So I kind of used, say I got a picture of the band Seafret and then I got a picture of a location I wanted to use, and I put them onto Emaze, and I wrote text over the top of it of, oh, this would be a good location to use and stuff like that. So that's how for my planning it changed slightly. For this section of my blog, I definitely continued the use of Emaze, Prezi and Powtoons and stuff like that, but I also began to use Google Docs. I found this was much easier to use than, say, PowerPoint or Word, and I felt like it was more sophisticated to use than uploading something onto SlideShare, especially SlideShare can sometimes be quite tricky to embed onto your blog. I found this so much easier to work with. I regard this section of my blog as still largely software-based. However, I did begin to experiment with different hardware. So I went to, when picking my band, Three Streets, I went to one of their gigs, and I filmed part of the gig on my iPhone 6S, and then I put that clip onto my blog and onto YouTube, and then embedded it onto my blog. So that's how I upped my game a little bit in hardware. So when I reached the production stage of my blog, this is really where I began to stray away from online tools and began to use heavy, like Adobe, softwares and hardwares. So for my poster drafts, my poster final product, I took pictures on a Canon 550D with a 50mm lens. It's a high aperture lens, where I edited them on Adobe Photoshop. So in Photoshop, I used different tools. So I used, so the first thing I did was place it on, then use something like levels, and then brighten to contrast in order to make the image stand out more. I also used a black and white filter in order to kind of make my images look more edgy or make them fit what I was going to do for my poster. So then after I edited the images, I then created a document on InDesign. So I created an A4 page where it will be the basis of my poster. So first I picked what fonts, picked the sort of style I wanted to go for. So I went for a main image rather than a full bleed image, and I put the text on first. So I've kind of made like a hierarchy. So I added the album name, which was Lover, and then the band name, which is Three Streets. Added them on there, and I also added things like institution information such as their Twitter or their website, and then I added some reviews and stuff. And this I feel was very easy to do. So then after I edited the image, I just placed it on and just made it into quite a cool layout. Also on InDesign, which I think is quite a cool tool to do, is I created my own colour. So in the drop-down menu of colours, you can. What I did is I duplicated a swatch, and then I duplicated a red swatch, and then I altered it to fit what I wanted it to be. So the shade of red that I created was R186, G35 and B50. So what I could do is I could change the opacity of this colour. So instead of it being like really bold, I could kind of dull it down a bit, which I felt like that was how I did the background of my poster. And after I finished my drafts and after I finished my final product, I exported this as JPEGs and then put them onto my blog. So my digipack roughly followed the same process. So I took the same pictures with the Canon 550D with a 50mm lens, and then edited these photos on Photoshop before. And as well as using a black and white filter, I also used different filters to kind of make the colour stand out a bit more and kind of make kind of the people look darker but the colours stand out, if that kind of makes a bit of sense. So I experimented again with the levels and the brightness and contrast, just as what you usually do to just initially make it stand out. And then when I created the InDesign document for my digipack, I created 4 squares. So one as a front cover and 2 inside covers, which was a spread, and then a back cover. This was, I think, what most digipacks look like. So it's generally you find a front cover, inside cover, and then a back cover. Once again, I began to experiment with different fonts, and I downloaded lots of fonts from the online website dafont.com. So after I experimented with fonts, I was able to place the images I'd already taken onto my digipack and play around with the layouts. This digipack consisted of a main image on the front cover and a main image on one of the inside covers, as well as there being quite a heavy presence of 3 Streets logo. When it got to the point of me creating a final draft, I used a PDF template that already existed, and I kind of placed my already existing digipack onto the template. So this template was quite professional because it showed you the the actual dimensions of it. So say the fold would be 2mm long, or this bit would be 5mm long, and I think that's what made it look really professional. So after I put it onto that, I then I used that mainly to just show that it actually was a digipack rather than just being 4 squares, in a sense. The template had different dimensions on it and had the technical lines on it. I placed my digipack. So when I exported my digipack, I exported it as a JPEG as well, so individual images, and I also exported it as a PDF, so which means I could easily upload it onto the online platform Issuu to say if the images weren't good quality or whatever. I could put it onto Issuu, which is another online platform. So I feel like my digipack there was quite good because I made it look professional in the layout, and I also kept the single images in case I wanted to show the different versions of it. When I began to do my music video, it became a lot more complicated. So this was in terms of both hardware and software. I began filming in my friend's homemade band room, which is kind of like, it's a bedroom that's been soundproofed in a way. Here I had to set up a drum kit and various other instruments as well as amps, which you can see in the corners. The lighting I used for this shoot was an ICAM LED 508D with 2 red plastic gels on to show to make the red glow in the room, and I also used 2 ICAM iLED 6 zoom lights, which are in the corner facing on the drum kits. I then used a Canon 70D with a 10 to 20mm Sigma lens to film the majority of the music video. So this is, you'll see this largely on the takes of all of the band. So when there's a shot of all 4 of them, or like in the corner of the room looking down or something, that's when I use the Canon 70D. But then I also used the Canon 550D with a 50mm lens to film the close-up of the guitar and the close-up of the drum kit. I feel like this close-up, especially with and I especially used the manual focus setting, meant that I could really get up close and I could really change the focus pause, and do it the way that I thought was best. And then with these cameras I recorded several takes. I think I recorded about 8 or 9, which ultimately ended up to about at least half an hour of footage if you put all the takes back to back. So after I filmed my footage, I placed all of them onto Premiere. So instead of just having one video and then one audio, I ended up having 9 videos and 9 audios. And initially what I did is I needed to undergo the task of syncing them all up. So what I did was I put the song, so the song Backstabber by 3 Streets, and I marked on it, if you can just do right click and add marker, where he started singing. So then what I did on all the other clips is I marked where in the clips he started singing as well, and then what I did is I just matched them all up, and that was relatively a very easy way to do, and previously I thought it would be quite daunting to match it all up together. The next thing I needed to do is mark where I wanted to cut. So if you go to the top of the timeline, what I did is I added a marker, and it would just put on a point of where it was just add like a little flag kind of. So I did that across the whole song and all of the clips. And then what I did was I selected all of the videos, and I clicked Control K, and it cut all the videos straight down, which I think was a very, very useful tool, and it was saved a lot of time, which was very, very helpful. I was able to cut all the straight eight takes in one go. I mainly edited my music video this way by, so say there's a little bit where the guitar is very prominent. What I would do is I'd say, oh, video 8 doesn't look very good there. Oh, video 7, oh, it's okay. Video 5, oh, video 5 looks really, really good for this 2 seconds of music. So that's how I mainly edited it. I didn't really think I needed to do like color gradients or anything like that, or any like, say for instance, like fades or zooms or slow-mos, because I feel like what makes it a good performance music video is that it's very raw and it's very, oh, here they are, and this is them, there's no changes, there's no Photoshop, there's nothing, it's just them, which I think was what made it very good. When I went to do my second draft and went to do more filming, I used a Canon 550D again, and I used Premiere. I put it onto the same timeline. I used a black and white filter here as well, which is a difference of how I use, say, like how I edited it after filming. I added a black and white filter. This black and white filter kind of showed the descent from the black and white to the red, and it showed the descent of, oh, here we're making the song, oh, to here now we're thinking of how good the now we're going to the descent into the anger. So after finishing my music videos in my first and second draft, I uploaded onto I exported them as media, and I uploaded them onto the online platform YouTube. I feel like uploading onto YouTube made it very accessible for everyone, which is obviously what I wanted to do by filming a music video. So when thinking of my evaluation, I use different softwares and hardwares as well. So for question 1, I use a Canon 550D with a tripod to film myself speaking. With this footage, I then put it onto Premiere and overlapped it with my music video and my music video and my poster and my digipack. So say when I was talking about my music video, I'd put my music video there, or when I was talking about my poster, I'd put a picture of my poster there. So that was mainly what I did for question 1. I also put quite a few text overlapping as well, so I'd make titles and I'd put on the text. So like when I say poster, I put on the word poster and stuff like that. So and then I uploaded that, put onto YouTube. And then for question 2, I wrote it as a Word document, and then I uploaded it onto an InDesign document. So I think I did about 4 pages. It was a magazine. So I uploaded previously taken photos, so such as the ones I've taken for my band, for my poster, my digipack, and I put them onto the InDesign page. And I already put them into like 3 columns. So when I uploaded the text, it looks as if it was a newspaper, but then I edited it and changed the layout in order to make it look more like a music video. So I opted for 3 columns to make it look like a more professional magazine. I experimented with paragraph styles as well, which is a handy little tool on InDesign. So say I wanted all my headings to be in, say, font Arial. Every single time I'd make a heading, I'd just click paragraph style heading, and it would turn it into that font and that style, which is quite a useful thing to do. And I think changing it and actually makes it quite look professional. So with question 3, also. I wanted it to be a podcast, so I used a digital voice recorder to record my voice, and then I uploaded it to the online platform SoundCloud. And then when I embedded it onto my blog, it looked quite cool, because actually, as if it had a little box of SoundCloud there, as if it was on the website itself, which I think was quite cool. And then for this question, my final question, I have used a Canon 550D and a tripod to record myself. I then uploaded this onto YouTube, and I haven't put any overlapping, so I feel like for this one, where I tried to avoid showing my face in question 1, with question 4, I have shown my face to show how I can handle different types of ways of doing it. I think this is very important, because I instead of just doing video, I've opted to do different things to show the variety in the way I can use hardware and software. I think that's quite important. And then other ways in which I have used technologies was in production. So I made heavy use of YouTube, especially with my feedback. I also used Photoshop to create a contact sheet, which is quite a useful way to show all my images in one image. I also used Cam Studio Recorder to record my monitor while I was filming my editing processes, which I think was which I think was very cool because it kind of, so software that you click record and then it records what you're doing, which I think is very, very useful and very, very cool, especially as it shows exactly how I did it rather than me just writing it on like a slideshow. It shows exactly how I did it. I put this on YouTube as well. So over the whole course of my over the whole of my coursework, I developed my use of hardware. I developed my use of hardware for quite a lot, especially if you see the journey from my research to my evaluation. I haven't just stuck with using emails. I haven't done an emails for one of my questions. I have completely changed everything. I have completely developed my skills and developed all the way that everything that I've done it. And I think without this technology, I wouldn't have been able to create the products that I have, and I certainly wouldn't be able to deliver them as effectively as I did. And I think so in regards to the question of how I use media technologies, they were vital in what I was doing, they were vital in the process of my coursework. And I feel like the journey from my research to my evaluation shows how I have developed my own skills and how I've changed the way I do things quite a lot, which I think is really good. So ultimately, without media technologies, I wouldn't have been able to do anything that I've done, and without it, I wouldn't have been able to design, I wouldn't have been able to plan, I wouldn't have been able to construct anything. So ultimately, the use of media technologies was vital in what I was doing, and I used different hardware and softwares throughout the whole journey of my coursework.